Well, viewers, it was almost 2 decades ago when 24 Kashmiri Hindus were killed in Nadimarg village near Shopian in Jammu and Kashmir. The village, remember, had a total of 11 families with 52 people. Almost half of them were massacred by terrorists who entered wearing military fatigues, lined up the villagers and shot them dead in cold blood. Now, as the Jammu and Kashmir High Court has decided to reopen the case, the hopes of hapless Hindus who had been left to fend for themselves have also been revived, as have the wounds and pain of how they were betrayed by those who were meant to shield them. Times Now traced the victims' families, hear them narrate the horror of that night and who left them exposed to terrorist bullets.
रात के 3 बजे थे और हम जो गाय जहाँ पे रखते वहाँ पे मम्मी के साथ मैं और मेरा भाई ऐसे दोनों को पकड़ा हुआ था, मुंह पे हाथ रख के ताकि कुछ बोले ना, और ऐसे ही 4-5 बजे तक वहाँ रुका गया था। बुरा लगता है और गुस्सा भी आता है कि ऐसा हुआ था और किसी ने कुछ किया नहीं। जैसे उन्होंने बताया कि मेरे पापा थे जो पुलिस वहाँ चौकी गए थे, लेकिन उनको बजाय पुलिस फोर्स भेजने के उनको भी जेल में बंद कर दिया कि आप मत जाओ, हम भी नहीं जा रहे। अगर पुलिस का सपोर्ट होता क्या पता कोई बच जाता।
हमारी फैमिली में रिलेशन में ये कुछ लोग ये कैसे बच गए, इन्होंने अंधेरा, उस वक्त बिल्कुल गुप्त अंधेरा था, उन्हें अंधेरे का फायदा उठा के कहीं आगे पीछे भाई घूम गए थे, रात को ढंगरों में बैठे थे। और मेरे मामा का लड़का वो उसी वक्त पुलिस चौकी में चला गया। पुलिस उनको बताया हमें मार रहे हैं, उधर उग्रवादी आ गए, हमें मार रहे हैं। पुलिस वालों ने उनको बिठा के रखा, बोला इस वक्त हम नहीं जाएंगे, कुछ भी हो हम सवेरे जाएंगे। सवेरे आ गए तो समारोह हुआ था, कोई जिंदा ही नहीं था। इससे काली रात क्या होगी।
So yeah, several questions coming to light. You heard the pain. Now Times Now shows you who is to blame for this hurt and injustice. Times Now has accessed the verdict given by Shopian Court in 2009, where the judge made scathing observations, putting the police in the dock, detailing how 68 times the police failed to produce accused number 1 in the case in the court. What is more shocking, though, viewers, is the reason cited by the police: lack of manpower to protect the accused. Now, who was in power at that time? Congress's Ghulam Nabi Azad, followed by Umar Abdullah. And if you thought the muftis could be absolved of being apathetic, hear this.
कश्मीरी पंडितों के ऊपर कहाँ है हीलिंग टच की पॉलिसी? कहीं नहीं। उसके बाद जब हम 14 अप्रैल को जम्मू आए, उसके बाद यहाँ उन्होंने अपना रवैया कुछ और दिखाया। तो फिर हमारे में से एक एजेंट से बंदे थे, उन्होंने बोला आप सीएम की हैसियत से नहीं हम आपको बोल रहे हैं, आप सीएम हो या गवर्नमेंट में हो, हम एक पड़ोसी की हैसियत से आपको बोल रहे हैं, क्योंकि आप वहाँ पे कश्मीर में हमारे पड़ोसी रहे हो। तो नाडीमर्ग और बिजबिहाड़ा का कितना ही डिफरेंस था तो आप तो जानते ही हो। तो उन्होंने बोला नहीं, पड़ोसी हम वहाँ थे, यहाँ नहीं है। तो अब हम भी देखते हैं यहाँ के पंडित, यहाँ के लोकल्स आपकी कितनी हेल्प करेंगे। इतना रूड बिहेवियर हमारे साथ यहाँ पे हुआ।
Government need not necessarily give day-to-day instructions about handling of cases. That's primarily the job of the police and the investigating agencies. But the firmness of the government gets conveyed by lots of other means. And somehow that impression had percolated down that probably we can, take all these cases as they had been happening repeatedly since 1990. Several massacres had taken place, and we could probably, deal it with the routine. The firmness which became visible from the government side during last few years, last 7-8 years, that firmness was missing that time.
Let me go across to Pradeep Datta joining us with more details before we open this up to our guest joining us this evening. Pradeep, good evening to you. Now, whatever has come to light with regards to the Shopian court's observation is indeed scathing, because it puts to light how there was a deliberate attempt to make sure that the accused are not punished. Now that the case has been reopened by the Jammu and Kashmir High Court, certainly a big relief for those who've seen this massacre very, very closely, those who are still living it in their dreams. But look at what was done and how there were several loopholes all throughout.
Yes, you're absolutely right. There can't be biggest ever betrayal than this thing. If you look at, I've got the order copy with me in this, you rightly said, very strong observation made by the principal session judge at that point of time in Shopia. He said that 68 times the prime accused, who was Zia Mustafa, a Pakistani terrorist who along with a group of terrorists came out to that place on 23rd of March 2003. And they were the one who had sprayed bullets, killing 24 people, which included 11 women, 11 men, and they did not even spare children. For 68 occasions, this man was not produced before the court, and every time the argument that was given by the police was that they don't have nafri. That means they don't have a manpower so that they can get these people, get this man towards the court. Now the question was asked by the judge, if the person who is in your custody, if you can't get that man to court saying that you don't have a nafri for that, you don't have a manpower for that, how come you will be getting those 17 prime witness, the main witness in this case, who had seen this thing happening, who have now fled to different parts of the country, and you don't have any idea? In such a situation, how come you expect justice? And the second thing was that in 2007, one petition was filed by then SP Pulwama. He wanted that case should be shifted to Jammu court, so that at least the witness can depose before the court without any fear. But all of a sudden, without any rhyme or reason, unconditionally that petition was withdrawn. That is also mentioned in this order. So judge said you are simply buying time, you are simply trying to save your face, and nothing else. And also what is more important is that these lines which I want to read, the prosecution as well as police has been highly negligent in not bringing the witness during the entire period. That means for 6 years. 6 years, 101 times the case was listed before the court, and not even once they were able to get witness. When I spoke to these prime witness also, I spoke to Mohan Bhatt. He said yes, once only after 2008 a policeman came. He said that you will have to come to the Pulwama court and the Shopian court for your deposing before the court for that statement. He said that, are you going to provide the security? They said no, we will only provide you security outside court and while you will be inside court. En route we are not responsible for that. In such a situation, the question that everybody is asking, if you can provide security to all those separatist leaders, 500 crore was spent on those separatist leaders. If you can provide security to enablers of genocide, why can't you provide the security to the people who had suffered a lot because of Pak-sponsored terrorism? That means there was an ecosystem that was supporting terror. There was an ecosystem that was providing oxygen to terrorism.
A deliberate attempt to delay justice at that. Pradeep, thank you for that. Let's quickly break this down, viewers, before we take this up to our guests this evening. You know, this is what happened. The 68 times that the court is talking about, the Pulwama court from 2003 to 2008, and you can see the numbers for yourself. 73 times the case has been listed for hearing. 49 times accused number 1 was not produced in court. Only produced 24 times in 6 years. That's the first appearance. If we talk about the bracket 2003 to 2008. If we talk about Shopian court 2008-2009, case was shifted. Remember, this is when the case was shifted. And 19 times accused number 1 was not produced by the police. In fact, that's when it sought adjournment due to shortage of nufri. So that's the number there for you. And let me open this up to our guest joining us this evening. We have Charu Pragya, spokesperson of the BJP, Sushil Pandit. With us also is Ahmad Ayaz, lawyer, and Ashwini Handa, former leader of the Congress party. Ashwini Handa, if I can begin with you, because, you know, this is definitely, if nothing else, an attempt to delay justice for all of those who saw this in the middle of the night in 2003, for all this who were fighting for justice, demanding justice all this while. 68 times the prosecution could not produce the accused before the court. How do you justify this?
बिल्कुल ये एक तरह से अलकादा लाइक किलिंग थी जो आतंकियों ने की थी, और हम इसकी पूरी तरह से निंदा करते हैं जिस तरीके से नरसंहार किया गया था। लेकिन उस समय पर जो है वो मुख्यमंत्री जो है वो मरहूम मुफ्ती साहब थे, और गवर्नमेंट जो है वो अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी जी की थी। और ऐसा क्यों है कि हर बार तभी कोई नरसंहार होता है जब भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार केंद्र में होती है और पीडीपी की जो सरकार है वो जम्मू कश्मीर में होती है। इसी तरह से छत्तीसपुरा हुआ, इसी तरह से बहुत सारी ऐसी घटनाएं हुई हैं। भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार के चलते ऐसे नरसंहार क्यों होते हैं, ये सबसे बड़ा प्रश्न है। और जिस तरह से ये नरसंहार किया गया,
सर हम कहाँ की
उसकी
बात
निंदा
कर रहे
करते
हैं?
हैं और
मैंने आपको जो कोर्ट का डेटा बताया, हम कौन से कोर्ट की बात कर रहे हैं? इसमें सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को बार बार बीच में लाने का कोई फायदा नहीं है, क्योंकि आप बोल रहे हैं कि मुफ्ती सईद 2003 में वहां पे चीफ मिनिस्टर थे। ये चलिए ये मैसेफेयर के टाइम की बात है, पर ट्रायल तो उसके बाद चल रहा था ना सर। 2009 तक 68 टाइम्स अक्यूज नंबर 1 को प्रोड्यूस नहीं कर पाई स्टेट गवर्नमेंट। Prosecution failed 68 times. That's what the principal sessions judge said in Shopia court. That आप witness को क्या produce करेंगे जबकि आप accused को produce नहीं कर पा रहे हैं? Charu Pragya wants to come in. Charu.
Yeah. So, you know, Kritsween, first of all, justice delayed is justice denied, and I understand that. And I feel extremely, extremely saddened that this has been a situation, especially for Jammu and Kashmir. But we started asking for reopening of these files when the 84 Sikh Massacre files were reopened. So if we can open a case after 34 years, why were the previous governments and the courts at that point of time given an excuse saying that after 27 years it's difficult to reopen this? See, what happened at Nadimarg was not a crime. It was sin against humanity, and those who allowed this sin to happen, to carry on, it was not done overnight. So anybody who's pointing at one particular date and saying here is the problem, I'm sorry, I disagree. This continued over a decade. Throughout the 90s, there were hundreds of cases that should have been reopened. If not today, then maybe they should be reopened tomorrow. Because every single day there were atrocities, there were massacres, and it did not stop, and it happened right under the nose of people who were in power in Jammu and Kashmir and who were feeding off Pakistan, who were actually encouraging separatists, who were actually supplying arms and support to the people who were coming in from Pakistan and ensuring that they cannot be peace in our country. So
a never-ending problem that we are staring at in our country.
And you know, adding to that,
it's a never-ending problem.
Yes.
There are terror sympathizers.
Right.
There are people who have problem with Kashmiri files, who go on to question the center because, you know, the filmmaker is promoting Kashmiri files. And we know what that movie was all about.
These terrors and these terror sympathizers, these terror sympathizers have been in prominent positions of power. What could be more shameful than that? And these terrorists, they could have, they could have been behind bars, and we could have done some sort of semblance of justice to the people we lost. A 65-year-old person, a 2-year-old child. These terrorists did not see who's
Charu,
in front
if we talk
them.
about the details of that night, midnight,
they mutilated
that month in 2003, when people were queued up. These 24 people, Charu, were queued up. Sushil Pandit, we know how they were queued up. And bullets were hurled at them. We don't want to get into those details, but we're talking about a larger problem here. We're talking about the fact whether there was no recognition of, whether or not justice needs to come their way. 2003 is when this happened. That was Mufti Sayyid's government. Then came Ghulam Nabi Azad as the chief minister. Omar Abdullah in 2009. Was that the value of those 24 lives that the state governments, one after the other, didn't think it important to deliver justice to these families?
I think the words fail me today. When a 2-year-old was subjected to an entire magazine of AK-47 emptied on that body, that frail body of 2-year-old, and a 65-year-old gunned down. Imagine you have an ogre sitting in this panel who immediately tries to work out which party was in the power in center, forgetting that Mufti Muhammad Saeed government in the state was supported by the Congress. It was a 3-year shared rule, which is why Ghulam Nabi Azad succeeded Mufti Muhammad Saeed. Every party is culpable. Every prime minister is culpable. This is 20 years since the massacre took place, and on flimsy grounds, the entire case was stalled. I'm saying such massacres don't happen every other day, so the political leadership is necessarily logically involved in delivering justice. But in this case, the political leadership was involved in blocking justice. And which is why I say this was a planned genocide where entire political class, entire leadership is culpable. It is not a case of law and order or murder or massacre. It is a case of finishing off an entire community and striking such fear in their hearts that they don't even contemplate ever returning to their homes. This is the religio-ethnic cleansing of Kashmir. This case happened in 2003, but 5 years before that, Bandhama happened. In between Sangrampura.
But how do you justify this?
There have been...
Sushil Pandit, how do you justify this? And the reason is the most bizarre. Lack of manpower, really? Who is to believe this?
No, so the entire system, you know, even Supreme Court is complicit in this. In 2017, we approached Supreme Court to reopen such cases. They threw our petition out. It was Chief Justice, Justice J.S. Keir, and followed by Chief Justice, Justice Deepak Mishra. And both were accompanied by a justice who is going to become Chief Justice of India. His name is Justice Chandrachud. They all were complicit in whitewashing these cases, in refusing to reopen these cases.
Again, doesn't the larger question once again comes out to be, it's a mindset problem. There is, lack.
It is the problem of denying genocide. First you commit genocide and then you whitewash a genocide.
That's exactly why, the entire issue of Kashmiri files has been so very at the center of this debate because, that was the truth speaking for itself via a film. And that time also you saw how Mehbooba Mufti came out and said that this is weaponizing the Kashmiri Hindu sentiment. So that's the problem here. Ahmad Ayaz, don't you think the justice could have been delivered well in advance? And, these kind of pathetic excuses have led to the delay, but it's the mindset that's the problem here.
Absolutely, it is true that there are many, mass massacres which have taken place, even mass raping has taken place in the case of Nadimarg Massacre, and then Chatti Singh Pora, and then Kaupradal, and then Kanan Pora rapping. There had been lapses at every level as to why. That's why these cases could not be brought to the logical conclusion. And despite the fact that there had been a case in the case of FIR in the case of Nadimarg case in the 2003 in Zanapura police station. And why that could not be persuaded well, that also has to be seen as to what happened to that. Despite though this has gone to the court, even it could not be pursued with the courts also. And ultimately in 2011, this contrast was fully closed because the administration could not bring up the witnesses or the applicants or the petitioners had moved to somewhere, whatever reason they gave. But the point is the cases should have been so persuaded, so done that it is done to the satisfaction of the entire people, that whatever is being done, justice is being delivered. But unfortunately, it has not been done in any case of these mass massacres and the mass rapping. And it is good that if at all none of the cases are opened, like Nadimarg, and we should see to it that all cases, mass massacre, and the mass rappings, whatever has happened, those also should get inquired and reopened and see that whoever are,
well, in my opinion, Mr. Ahmad Ayaz, even the fact that now the case has been reopened, there is a delay. We're talking about 2022. Look at the legal fight that's been on for the last so many years, and look at what the details that have come to light reveal. The 2009 Shopian court details stated very, very clearly that there was an attempt, deliberate attempt made to make sure. That's of course not the court stating it, but that's the obvious observation, isn't it? If you could not produce the accused on multiple occasions, more than 60 times, they failed to do it. And with a bizarre excuse that there's no manpower to produce the accused, how will you produce the witnesses? How will you guarantee them security? That's the question that comes to light. Charu wants to come in.
True. Yeah, you know, Kritsween, I also want to say that we should not just reopen the cases for the terrorists. We need to take action against these judges, even if they've retired. These policemen who were complicit in ensuring that justice could not be delivered at that time, they were helping. They're equally guilty, you know, because had they been a little stronger, had the judge put his foot down, there was so much that could have been done, and it was just not done. Today, sitting here discussing this, even reopening the files, it just feels like so little. Honestly, that's all that I can say. But still, I am glad that ours is a government which is pushing forward issues which matter, which are making sure, that the people of this country know exactly what went on in Jammu and Kashmir, why they did not want Jammu and Kashmir to be integrated properly with the rest of the country, why they thought that they could continue the way they are continuing in cahoots with separatists, with Pakistani terrorists.
Absolutely. Well, the reopening of the 2003 Nadimarg Massacre case has come as a ray of hope for many who saw what really happened midnight 2003 that month, and how bullets were pumped, you know, into the bodies of those 24 Kashmiri Hindus, and that horror that people continue to relive every now and then. I hope a logical conclusion does come their way. But I thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Thank you, Charu Pragya, for joining us on this debate this evening.